Hey guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Joey. UFC Vegas 25 was absolutely incredible. I wanted to pick a couple winners off the card and tell you who I think they should fight in their next fight. Just a crazy performance by Jiri Prochazka. I mean, I can't say enough good things about him. If you haven't checked out my post fight for that card yet, make sure you go check it out. I'll put the link in the description for that. But what a phenomenal performance to go out there in your second UFC fight and beat the shit out of Dominick Reyes and then KO him the way you did. I just can't get over that spectacular knockout. The way he just leaned into that original standing elbow, kind of grazed him a little bit, missed him for the most part, and then just spun into that spinning back elbow KO, which just filthy. The performance up until that point was just amazing. Constant pressure, constant landing, heavy power shots. Overcoming adversity. He was stunned badly by Dominick Reyes and then shot in on a takedown, recovered, and was able to win the fight. He went from stunned to winning the fight within maybe a minute and a half. I don't remember the exact time frame, but that's absolutely spectacular. So I'm going to give you a matchup for Jiri Prochazka, and I'm going to give you a matchup for Giga Chikadze. So those are the two guys I'm going to pick off the card, both winners, co-main and main event. So I'll start off with Giga Chikadze. He called out in this post-fight Max Holloway, and he also kind of called out Calvin Kattar. Now, I think either one of those fights would be phenomenal from a fan's perspective. But let's be real now. Chikadze's been around, not for super long. He's, and I use the rankings for reference. I don't think the rankings mean a whole lot, but you can kind of use them for reference. He's ranked number 14. What makes him, what about a win over Cub Swanson, who's ranked number 15? What about that win really gives him the, hype to even challenge Max Holloway? Now, don't get me wrong. As a fan, I would absolutely love the Max Holloway fight. I love when you have a guy that comes into the UFC. He has a lot of hype. He looks like he's the real deal, but he hasn't fought a lot of stiff competition yet. I always loved the idea of throwing them into the deep end. I was so excited for Khamzat Chimaev versus Leon Edwards, which obviously never happened. But that was kind of a similar scenario where people were high on Khamzat, and instead of making him kind of work his way up, they said, okay, let's just throw him into the deep end and let him fight Leon Edwards. It didn't end up happening, but so I would love to see the Giga Chikadze fight, but I have a feeling that isn't going to happen. The Calvin Kattar fight would make sense a little bit. That would give a nice step up in competition. Kattar's ranked number 5, but Kattar just took an absolute brutal beating by Max Holloway in January. So I don't know when he's going to be ready to return, but I wouldn't mind that fight either. Chikadze actually said he'll step in on next week's card. It needs a main event, and he'll fight anyone. So who knows? He might end up on next week's card. We'll see about that. But who I would probably like to see him against, there's a fight in June. I think it's June 19th. The Korean Zombie versus Dan Ige. I would like to see Chikadze fight the winner of that fight. And now all this depends on, who's healthy coming out of the fight, what happens in the fight. So who knows how long that would be. But I would love to see Chikadze test it against Korean Zombie or Dan Ige. I'm high on both those guys. I think it would be a fun fight. And then after that, his next fight would be a potential, number 1 contender fight, which is crazy, him moving that fast. He could also fight, I think Shane Burgos is fighting Edson Barboza on UFC 262. He could fight the winner of that. But I say let him fight the winner of Chan Sung Jung versus Dan Ige. I think that's a great stylistic matchup and a great jump for him. Dan Ige is currently ranked number 8. Again, I don't put a lot of stock into these rankings, but Dan Ige is number 8. Chan Sung Jung is number 4. Whoever wins that fight, match him up with Giga Chikadze. It would be a fun fight. I think it would make some sense. And I think it would be fun, man. Can you imagine? Chikadze's striking looks super technical. And imagine him going against Korean Zombie, who's just going to come forward nonstop. And Korean Zombie has some great technical striking, too. I know he got outstruck and brought by Brian Ortega in his last fight. But I think that fight would be super exciting. I think, really, you can't go wrong matching up with anyone from 1 to 10, realistically. You can match Chikadze up, and it would be fun. But I'm going to go with, number 1 would be Chan Sung Jung. versus Dan Ige winner. Then I would go Calvin Kattar. But I wouldn't mind any of them, even if Max Holloway happened. I mean, let's test him. It would be fun as hell. And I know Max Holloway probably take the fight, even though it didn't make sense. Let's move on to Jiri Prochazka. Jiri Prochazka, he's the definition of a guy that was brought into the UFC and immediately thrown into the deep end. People, apparently he turned down a UFC offer early on in his career because he said he wasn't ready yet. He wanted to build a little bit more experience before coming into the UFC. Comes into the UFC, just sleeps Volkan Ozdemir. Volkan Ozdemir is an elite fighter. And for him to come in his first fight and brutally KO him the way he did, I think it was in the third round. He has, some decent. It's not like he's coming in and KOing these guys in 5 seconds Ngannou style, or, he's getting some experience in these fights, and he's looking good within these fights. He's facing adversity within these fights, and then he's coming out, the winner in spectacular fashion. So he beats Volkan Ozdemir. Then he goes on to fight Dominick Reyes, who I personally am not super high on Dominick Reyes. I think he's a good quality fighter. But a lot of people think Dominick Reyes is championship quality. A lot of people think he beat John Jones. A lot of people were very high on him after the John Jones fight, regardless of the actual decision. And he comes out, not only does he face Dominick Reyes and win in spectacular fashion with that spinning back elbow, but he faces some serious adversity in the fight. He gets hurt badly, survives, shows some grappling skills, and just shows that, every time out he's going to be a better fighter. And he just looked great against Dominick Reyes. Who do I want to match him up with? So that's such a tricky question for me, because Dana said before this fight, the winner of this fight will fight for the belt next. Obviously, you already have Jan Blachowicz versus Glover Teixeira happening in September at UFC 266. So that's so far away. September, that's already 4 months away. So not only is he going to sit out 4 months, then the fight's going to happen. Then he may not be fighting till next year if he's waiting for the title fight. And then imagine something weird happens and they have to rematch. So I don't really think that's an option right now, is waiting for the title shot. I could be wrong. I also think if Jan or Glover Teixeira were to fall out of that fight, they could slot Jiri in. But I just feel like waiting for that fight is just really not an option at this point. So then the only other option, in my opinion, is a fight that I really wanted to see before this Dominick Reyes fight was scheduled. But I love it, but I hate it at the same time. So I want to see Jiri Prochazka versus Alexander Rakic. I believe that this fight would be so much fun. But the problem lies, and that would be a great fight. Yuri's crazy wild man style. Rakic just has some phenomenal striking. He's a huge, powerful, well-rounded guy. That fight would be so much fun, and it's the new breed of light heavyweight that we're seeing kind of come up the ranks. But Rakic is currently sitting at number 2. He's on the cusp of a title shot himself. He's just coming off the win over Thiago Santos. It wasn't super impressive. Yuri's obviously win was more impressive. But I would love to see those two guys fight. But the problem is, I hate seeing guys get knocked off to potential title contenders, Let's say Jan beats Glover. I'd like to see Jan fight Rakic and Jiri. So I hate to see Jiri knock off Rakic or Rakic knock off Jiri. I want to see both of them fight for the title. You could have, a possibility of Jan maybe dropping the belt to Rakic or dropping the belt to Jiri in the future after the Glover fight. If he wins the Glover fight, obviously that anything could happen. But you have the chance of Rakic or Jiri grabbing the belt off whoever's champion and then having those two matched up in a title fight, which I think that would be crazy. I would love that fight, especially imagine if it was a title fight. It would just make it that much bigger. Obviously, they would have to get some big wins to be able to be the champion. They would have to fight Jan or Glover potentially and snatch the belt off one of those guys. But that fight would be a lot of fun regardless of where it happens. And regardless, if those two guys fight each other, that's the number one contender fight. And they could always fight each other down the road. But that's just the fight I want to see. And, there's some negatives to it, but it's the fight to make, I think. And Rakic, I forgot. I think he fought Thiago. I'm trying to think when he fought Thiago. I can't even remember. But I think it was earlier this year. But I might be wrong on that. But he's fresh right now. And Jiri took a little bit of damage in this Reyes fight. But for the most part, I think he can fight it's not like he's going to be off for 6 months. Let's put it that way. He could fight in the next 3-4 months. He could take a little bit of time off, then come back and still fight before Yan fights Glover, because that's how far away that fight is. Uh, but so there are my two fights. Just another backup option, because I like to throw out a couple different options, but that's the one I want to see. But you could also have Jiri Prochazka fight Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith just wins last week against Jimmy Crute, so they're kind of on the same timeline. You could make that fight. I don't love that fight, but it could be fun. I think Jiri probably beats him, and probably beats him pretty decisively. But I imagine, and I hate to think like this, because if you can't beat this guy, then you can't. You're not going to probably be champion anyway. But imagine a scenario where Jiri goes out there and gets slept by Anthony Smith. Then everything's just screwed up. Then you got Anthony Smith wanting to come up again, which I don't mind, but I just hate to shut down a guy like Jiri when he could be fighting another contender, and one of those contenders are building their name off of each other. So I just really think Jiri Prochazka versus Alexander Rakic is the fight to make, and I don't think anybody's going to disagree with me with that. So Jiri Prochazka, Alexander Rakic, and give me Giga Chikadze versus the winner of Korean Zombie and Dan Ige next month. Those are the two fights I want. Comment down below and let me know, who do you want to see these two winners from UFC Vegas 25? Who do you want to see them fight next? Am I crazy with my matchups? Do these matchups make sense to you? Because I think they make perfect sense to me. I think they'll be a lot of fun. So just let me know that in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like the video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.